What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Hope everyone is staying safe here in Florida. It's already getting a little rainy here in South Florida. Thinking about everybody in the path of the storm. Hope everybody makes it through okay. A lot to talk about here with the Canes. It's a bye week, but the Canes talk does not stop. To me, the bye week has a lot of purposes: getting healthy, tightening up certain screws with communication, other issues in the secondary, which we've talked about. But one thing I really hope happens during this bye week is a close self-scout of personnel and finding out who deserves to play more snaps and how can we get these players the ball so they can impact the game in the second half of the season. So we will talk about some players that we want to see more of and ways that they might be able to help the team in certain specialized roles. First, I want to talk about some folks that you always want to see more of if you've been injured in an accident. That is Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. You could be entitled to significant compensation. So dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anijar and Levine. Pete, hop in.
Good afternoon, D. Excited for this episode today. Going to be talking about a lot of guys who, obviously, before the season, we get excited about these young players, these freshmen, big recruits that we've been hearing about all camp. And in reality, it's difficult to get these guys immediately on the field, especially when you start with a Florida. You obviously have a couple games after that and then USF, but then you're an ACC play now. So I'm interested and excited to see over these next few weeks here who gets in the mix and who's earned in the coaching staff's eyes. It's not about their ability. It's about really the trust that they've earned, in terms of putting them out there on the field and making sure they're not going to make too many mistakes. But as we've seen, there's been plenty of mistakes the last couple weeks here. So my thing is, like, if there's certain guys that aren't making the grade, then let's just get the young guy out there and give him an opportunity.
Yeah, and self-scout, right? See who's doing it in practice, who's done well in their limited snaps, who maybe has not done as well and needs less snaps, and just really evaluating where this team is at the halfway point. Thinking back to last year, I know Ruben Bain really took off around this time. Mark Fletcher really took off around this time. So this is a great opportunity for younger players to make that next step. I'm going to start with somebody who, my favorite player in the class last year. We talked about him all offseason. We've seen him a bunch, but I still don't think we've even scratched the surface of what he can do, and that is Elijah Lofton, the true freshman from Gorman. He is tight end, running back, you name it. Here, this is what I think we haven't seen yet, and let this clip roll a couple times. This is against Caleb Spencer. This is back in spring. Caleb Spencer transferred to Virginia Tech, had a huge game against Miami, so he's an ACC caliber defensive back. Look at what Elijah Lofton can do as a receiver lined up wide. He's not just someone who gets by athleticism. You can see right here, he has great releases, sharp routes, and then, of course, the hands to make one-handed catches with the defensive back getting physical with him. We saw this type of play every single day in camp. I cannot emphasize it enough. This guy, we saw him make a very, very nice contested catch, twisting his body, catching with his hands, absorbing a hard hit to his hip. In the California game, that was, I believe he was playing H-back and came out of the backfield. But this is someone who's not just an athletic guy that can catch the ball a little bit. He is a true route runner who could set guys up, make the one-handed catches, and truly play that receiver position. We've not seen him being asked to do that. It's been a lot of screens. Aside from the one catch against California, a lot of short passes, utilizing his ability to run after the catch. And I say this with no exaggeration. He might be our best tailback. I saw him in spring when everybody went down. He was basically our starting tailback when Fletcher was out. Martinez wasn't here yet. Lyle wasn't here yet. This guy was running for over 150 yards, full contact, scrimmage yards against our first-team defense. So this is a guy that can really run the ball. He sets up blocks. He's not just a bully out there. He can make guys miss. He has tremendous balance. Of course, he's 240 pounds. So we've seen him as a fullback making collisions. We've seen him blocking in line. We've seen him catching kind of screens, trying to get him the ball on the run, let him run out to the catch. We have not seen him as a tailback, and we've not really seen him as a wide receiver. I think there's a lot more meat on the bone with Elijah Lofton in this offense.
Yeah, he had that touchdown against Ball State. You mentioned the screen game. If Ward hits him against Virginia Tech there, he might have might have walked into the end zone. He had blockers out in front of him. So his numbers have been solid, but to me, it's sort of similar to a guy we'll talk about in a minute here in Chris Johnson. But every time it seems like he's getting the opportunity and the ball's going his way, a play is being made, right? So I agree with you 100%. And it's not so much even just getting him the ball like we talked about yesterday, but utilizing him in the run game as a blocker. And, you know, that just the fact that you've seen film on him, what he can do with the ball in his hands or as a weapon on the outside, it just plays into kind of confusing the defense even more.
Yeah, you mentioned that touchdown, which I believe was a wheel route. I mean, look, he showed speed on that one. Nice pass from Emory Williams. He can do a lot more as a receiver than what we've seen, and he can do a lot more as a runner than what we've seen. But the big thing I think he's proven over these first 6 games, aside from just being overall ready to play, is he can handle collisions at that fullback spot. So I no doubt he would, just because his body type, how physical he is and how strong he is in the weight room. But when you have a guy that can handle collisions as that lead blocker and block in line, seen him some couple reps where he's just demolished people in line, even though he's not the tallest guy. When he can do that, now you could trust him to be on the field. He could also pass protect. And then that's how you find your matchups. Because if he's not blocking, you can hand it to him, and he's going to be a ACC quality tailback. He can run routes like an ACC quality receiver. Again, you saw that route against Caleb Spencer. We keep playing. Caleb Spencer killed Miami as a safety of Virginia Tech. Had an interception, had a bunch of big plays, almost sacked Cam Ward on the play he hit with Riley Williams. So that's a good ACC defensive back, and he's routing him up, just basically playing wide receiver. So this guy can do a lot. He's already playing, but I think you'll see even more because of the matchup problems he brings. That's a touchdown in the red zone if you get the right matchup, because there's just not enough people that have the physical dimensions to stop all the things that he does.
Next guy we'll talk about here, Chris Johnson Jr. at the running back spot. We've seen him use a variety of ways, gotten him the football all sorts of different ways. Shannon Dawson has been scheming him the ball. Obviously, the speed is what sticks out with him. So we've talked a lot about the running back position in the last few weeks, but I look at this guy as an offensive gadget that, again, every time it seems like he's gotten the ball, it feels like he's going to go score. You know, we saw it on the kickoff return even a couple weeks ago against Virginia Tech. There was another opportunity against USF where I think Ward even underestimated his speed there a little bit when he underthrew him. But, I mean, we see it here on this clip. It's just get him the ball and let him go.
Yeah, I think one of those kick returns is going to go to the house in the second half of the year. It just seems close. One thing I would like to see from us using Chris Johnson, and we've already done it a bit, is threatening deep. Even if he's not catching the ball, just the presence that he has that he needs to be respected. If you don't have a safety there, Cam Ward, I think, is starting to figure out the timing. Underthrew him, like you mentioned, against USF. He'll throw it earlier next time, and all he's got to do is run under it, and that's 6 points. And he's a pretty good receiver, better than people think. He played receiver a lot growing up. So you look at the first 6 weeks, the offense has done everything that the offense could possibly do. The best statistical offense in the nation, maybe the best, truly the best offense in the nation. You haven't seen a lot of deep touchdown passes. You've seen, Cam Ward throws it down the field, no question. But as far as just like bombing it and scoring a long touchdown, I mean, you had the play to Sam Brown where he hit that whole shot against cover 2 and Sam Brown outrun everybody to the end zone. But how many bombs or just deep posts or just, long touchdown throws has there been? I haven't seen many. I haven't seen any aside from the one I just mentioned. So Chris Johnson gives you that threat, that true deep threat that teams have to respect. Cam Ward, of course, can throw it down that way, and that will allow other things to open up underneath and in the running game.
Yeah, agreed. And I think using him as a receiver, we saw that play against Ball State. He wasn't lined up in the backfield there. So you can do a lot of different things with him. And again, even if he's just as a decoy out there, I think he has to be someone that the defense is paying close attention to as soon as he steps on the field. So look, I understand that when he's out there, you're not going to be using him as a blocker out of the backfield, right? That's not a particular strength of his at this point. But man, that speed it's just different when you see him with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, and how do you play him? Do you play off? If let's say he's lined up at receiver, whether he motions out there or he lines up there with the formation. If you play too far off, trying to respect his speed, you can just throw him a now route. He catches the ball, and now he has the chance to make a move. And if he breaks that tackle, he can go that way for a touchdown. If you play it tight to take that away, he can run by you and burn you that way. So that speed just puts so much pressure on a defense when you have a guy that's at least a competent receiver, which was Johnson is. I mean, he can catch, he can adjust to the ball a little bit. He's not just some track star out there with no concept of how to catch the ball or play receiver. So I think you've seen him, kind of like Lofton, you've seen him be a part of this offense and have some success. I think that ratchets up now that you've seen this team through six weeks, understanding what he can do, and maybe understanding where the team's a little bit weaker. And I would say offense, there's not that many weaknesses, but if I'm playing this offense and I have a good team, like a playoff caliber team, I'm challenging Miami to throw deep. And I'm taking away the running game, and I'm challenging guys like Jacoby George and Sam Brown to beat me. Restrepo's not going to do it as much. Isaiah Horton could do it. But Johnson, he brings that whole speed dynamic for a team that really doesn't have a Santana Moss type or Jalen Waddle type at receiver.
All right, we'll flip over to the other side of the ball. And D, it's these two guys that we just talked about offensively. It's nice that they're luxury pieces, right? They're sort of gadget players at this point who obviously we believe can be more, which is why we would like to see them utilized more. But it's nice that those are the guys that we're talking about on offense, right? It's very tough to nitpick when it's been the best offense in the country by a lot of metrics. But next guy up here, Justin Scott, defensive lineman who is as athletic as anyone, as you'll see here in the clip that I'm about to play. But a guy who interior defensive line, it's tough a lot of times to get them immediately out there. It's just that learning curve tends to be a lot, and not so much learning curve, but just physically going up against some of these veterans in the interior. But he's a guy who has the athletic ability to do it, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you see the clips here and playing running back down in Chicago or up in Chicago, and then basketball-wise, two-hand block. I mean, this guy's a super athlete. One thing that I think he came here late, not because of any fault of his own, his school graduated later. One thing that's impressed me is the natural strength he has. You can see the athleticism and size. That's easy. But he has natural strength. He's not just a big guy. He has some natural power to him. And he plays very, very hard. I think that's sort of the secret sauce with defensive linemen. You're not going to know everything right away. But if you play hard and you have these physical tools, you'll make plays happen by mistake. And then as you figure out and refine your technique, you can become really, really special. So a guy like Justin Scott, you don't want to throw him into the fire. Certainly, like you mentioned, Pete, first game was UF. He did play a lot against the weaker teams. Then you get to the ACC. You're leaning on your bigger players, your older players first. But, man, seeing Justin Scott and what he's done to this point, I think he can have a bigger role. You have this bye week to get better and to really lock in. He's now seen what it looks like. I think he can do a lot more in the second half, not necessarily as a starter, but someone who plays a significant amount of snaps in this rotation. CJ Clark's already getting some snaps. You have Marley Cook getting in there a little bit. Ahmad Moten has played quite a bit. Simeon Barrow's a starter. Maybe Messidor gets more snaps at defensive end where he's more natural. And then Justin Scott gets a little bit more of a workload at defensive tackle.
Yep, agreed 100%. So, D, I know you want to talk about some of our friends, the best croquetas in the game, Islas Canarias.
Oh, absolutely. Look, hurricanes coming up, unfortunately, tropical storm for folks down here in South Florida. I know I'm loading up on food to eat during this storm. No better place than Islas Canarias. Authentic Cuban cuisine. They got the store out west, or the restaurant out west. They got the spot in the dining pavilion at Dayland Mall, the food court. You can load up there. It is the hottest spot in the whole dining pavilion. People are blown away that they can get the best Cuban food in Miami at the food court on an express basis without sacrificing quality of all the 7 types of croquetas there. All your favorite stuff is there at the express location, just like it is at the restaurant out west. So, I mean, what better place to load up on just croquetas, pastelitos, what you need to get through the storm. You get a whole box. You could just snack on it throughout the storm. It's easy. It's convenient. Islas Canarias, the #1 Cuban spot in the world. That's where Anthony Bourdain, the late Anthony Bourdain, went when he wanted to see the real Miami. He didn't go. There's some tourist spot downtown or in the beach. He went down to Southwest Miami, to Islas Canarias. And if we had the Islas Canarias Express, he would have had a much shorter drive right there. So check it out.
All right, next duo, I guess we'll say that we want to see out here, D. And actually, we did forget one person on the offensive side of the ball that we wanted to talk about. We'll get back to that in a second. But the Washington brothers, Robbie and Bobby. Robbie, of course, switching over from wide receiver to corner, and we're very excited about his potential there. And I know he's shown a lot of good things in practice already. But Bobby Washington, to me, we talked the last couple of weeks, D, about how Kiko Mauanoa, as great of a player as he's been for Miami, would be nice to get a little rotation in there because, at the end of the game, with the way that these games are going, right, he's having to chase some of these quarterbacks across the field. And I look at Bobby Washington as a guy that Coach Mario has already said has been making a big impact on special teams. He's been rotated in a bit. I want to say he got 1 snap last game at the linebacker position. But to me, man, you let him go. You let him get after the quarterback. I'm not saying that, he needs to be sitting back there playing the same role, as Kiko a lot of times where he's reading the quarterback and whatnot. But I use him as a blitzer, get that speed, get that physicality out there in certain situations. So at the linebacker spot, would love to get him. And there's some other guys who I think are deserving of some looks. But he's someone who excites me there. And then Robbie Washington at corner. We understand there's a need for some other guys to step up at that spot. Damari Brown's been out. But Robbie Washington has all the tools to me. And we were kind of talking about it before the show, D. And that's the premise with a lot of these young guys. It's like, I understand if you don't want to throw a guy out there, busted coverage, always a possibility of that. But if that's already happening right now with more veteran players out there, then why not give some of these other guys an opportunity?
Yeah, with Bobby Washington, starting with him, the speed is so rare. The change of direction, the fluidity is so rare. He plays hard. He's got a tremendous aggressive attitude. You see him on kickoffs just knocking people out and pointing to him. I'm surprised he hasn't gotten a penalty yet. He brings a lot of energy to that kickoff unit. I think of Chase Smith and what he's done, where either blitzing or he's dropping, and he has a very specific assignment on plays. He's gotten reps, more normal reps through the flow of the game, but sometimes he comes in and he's coming in for a reason, either the blitz or to drop, and he knows exactly what he's going to do. I think a guy like Bobby Washington, if you can put him in a position with a very simple responsibility, and it's not going to be throughout the course of the game, it might just be on a key third down, in critical situations where you have time to set the defense up and bring him in, he can be very impactful because his speed is so unique. He plays so hard. He changes direction so well. He's so physical and long at 6'3". I think similar to what we saw with Chase Smith, where he would come in and bring pressure and cause problems, you could do the same thing with with Bobby Washington. You're going to get more speed out of it. Not sure he's ready to play on a snap-to-snap basis, but specific packages and roles for him. Robbie Washington, his brother who switched to cornerback, played in this California game. I don't know if people caught that, but he was right in front of me. He actually replaced Jordan Lyle as a kick returner when Jordan Lyle got nicked up. So they're trying to get him in the mix on special teams. I like to see him on coverage units as well, just to get used to running down, tackling, the physical aspect of the game, which I think he'll embrace. Moving the corner, I don't think he's soft at all. I think he's built for defense mentally, but just more reps at high contact spots on special teams, I think is going to help his development. I'm not sure he's ready for the defense yet, but you'd like to fast track him because next year, if you could have him becoming that starter caliber type player, you already have OJ Frederick. Now you got two guys who are receivers in high school, who are kick returners in high school, and have a little bit more natural athletic ability than we've had at corner in recent years.
And then we'll finish up here in the secondary before we flip back to the last guy that we'll talk about. But Zaquan Patterson at safety, we've seen him a bit this year, played a bunch in that Virginia Tech game when Jaden Harris went down. But look, there's already been inconsistencies on the back end the last few weeks. I think you get a guy out there, again, potential role, potential, different situations, packages you can get him in because of the physicality that he brings to the table. So he doesn't have to be back there as one of the only two safeties. They could bring him in as the third guy in certain packages. But to me, would love to see him get in the mix a bit more.
Yeah, he was a really, really good blitzer in high school. I saw him blitz during the Virginia Tech game. The safeties, Jaden Harris was a little nicked up towards the end of that game. Patterson was playing a lot. Marquise Williams got nicked. And on a key third down, I want to say, they did bring Patterson on a blitz. And, if it was Mendoza, he probably would have got him, or someone like that, or Schuff, who Miami's playing next week for Louisville. Of course, that particular blitz was against Drones for Virginia Tech. He was able to get out of the pocket and make a play. But this guy can get to the quarterback. He's got incredible timing on his blitzes. He took over games in that way in high school, particularly some of the nationally televised games. Just great instincts for it, great speed, and he's a very good tackler as well. So I like to see him do some of that. Of course, you can't only do that because that's going to be a tell, but I think that's one way to get him going. Of course, in terms of some of the ways teams are challenging us on the perimeter, challenging us to tackle, a guy like this with his closing speed and tackling, I think can really help. I do think he is, with Bobby, I think Bobby Washington, you got to be real specific to what he does. I think Patterson's capable of just getting series at safety, and you don't have to particularly tailor to what he does, but he does have a unique talent in blitzing, which he had in high school. He did that a little bit in crunch time against Virginia Tech. I think he can do more of it going forward on top of everything else you ask him to do.
And then we'll finish up here with his high school teammate, JoJo Trader, and someone who we've seen the clips of him blocking. He did drop a pass last week against Cal, but we think should get other opportunities here as a guy at that spot who you've mentioned missed some time during camp. So kind of maybe put him behind the 8 ball a little bit there, but someone that Canes fans have been excited about for a while.
Yeah. And I think he's someone who's still working on his body. He came in skinny. So it's an adjustment to college football. It's adjustment to his body. That's why maybe, you compare him to Jeremiah Smith, and look, Jeremiah Smith is one of the best football players I've ever seen. I said it on yesterday's show. Jeanty, Hunter, Travis Hunter, Jeremiah Smith, and Ryan Williams are 4 of the best players I've ever seen, period. They just all happen to be in college at the same time. So not really fair to compare Jeremiah Smith to a JoJo Trader, his teammate, and expect the same impact. I think one thing that is helping Jeremiah Smith contribute early, among other things, is just his physical size and strength. JoJo Trader is getting a lot stronger. I think he's going to continue to get stronger, faster, more explosive. I think he was probably further behind Jeremiah coming out in that area with more room to grow. So he's going to continue to improve at a high rate. I think, look, he dropped the pass, which was a tough pass against Cal. I think, you still go to him. I don't think you're discouraged from playing him more. He's made great plays in practice. He's outstanding, changing speeds, fluidity, just a great athlete, a natural player. Jacoby George he's a senior, so he needs to play, and he's a big part of the offense. Sam Brown, same thing. Of course, he transferred to play a lot, but neither of those guys have been outstanding for the first 6 games. Dealt with injuries, dealt with absences, different things, but I don't see any reason why you can't take snaps from them and give it to Trader. I'm not necessarily taking Horton snaps based on how he's played. Restrepo is going to be in the slot as long as he's healthy and has wind, but Trader can take some of the snaps from Sam Brown and Jacoby George. And look, if all he does is push those guys to take their game to another level, that's still a positive result.
Yep, agreed 100%, D.
So a lot going on in college football generally. We're not going to get to all of it because there's a lot to break down. We've talked about the settlement a ton, the House settlement. Now it has been preliminarily approved. There's still a lot of work to be done there. I still have a lot of issues with the way they're proposed enforcing NIL, empowering the NCAA to enforce. I've given my thoughts on that topic many times, but I want to go to the post of the day, sponsored by the Miami Hurricane Team Store. And before we get to the post of the day, Pete, the Miami Hurricane Team Store is rocking and rolling. People have been asking me where I got this polo. I wore it on the Storm Sessions podcast I did with Cam Ward. So if you haven't checked that out, that's on the official account. I had a 30-minute sit-down with Cam Ward. He was awesome, answered a ton of questions, really learned about him and his background. That's on YouTube. Subscribe to Storm Sessions. We've got another one coming up tomorrow with Inez Cooper. But I wore one of these polos, and everybody's asking where you get the polo. Miami Hurricane Team Store. There you go, Peter. He pulled it up. Use promo code INSIGHT20 and get 20% off your first purchase. INSIGHT 20. So you get this polo 20% off. That's a steal. These things are high quality. You can wear them all the time. All right. So Miami Hurricane Team Store post of the day. This is on the CanesInSight.com message boards, free 7 million posts and counting. And this one's from my man Hoya Kane, one of the best posters that we have on the site. And he talking about an article that came out in Yahoo from Ross Dellinger about Project Rudy and a couple other proposals to take college football to the next phase, right, as it becomes more professional. SEC and the Big Ten are meeting about this week, among other things. One proposal is 70 teams. The 70 teams that really spend money. Cut out the FCS, cut out the G5, and just play each other. You could charge more for the media rights. You have more marquee games. There'd be a tiered system where the top 16 or so teams get more money than the rest of the teams. The tier 2 teams get more money than the tier 3 teams, and they divvy it up that way. So the teams that are really carrying the load of the media package get more money. That'll be an interesting debate, but that's something that does have approval. Dan Radakovich, Miami's athletic director, was actually quoted in this article saying that this idea makes sense, makes the most sense. Something needs to change. This thing needs to get professionalized. Private equity is trying to get in on this, including with the Project Rudy proposal, where they would basically say, look, we expect to increase these media rights significantly because you're very inefficient right now with these, you're playing 18% of your games against teams that can't really beat you, FCS or Group of 5. Make them all big games. Maybe divide it regionally, so there's some regional rivalries, historic or otherwise, that makes sense. And then we'll make more money on our media rights package by presenting a better product with more high-quality games across the board. Private equity wants to get involved. They'd front some of the money. Of course, they get paid back on it with a return. But interesting concepts, and I think the more you really break it down, these G5 and FCS games, and look, we all grew up on them. If something has to go to increase money, pay the players more, and just keep this thing rolling, I tend to think that makes a little bit of sense. Cut them out of the picture.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, those are the games that as soon as you see them on the schedule, you know you're probably not watching them unless your team is involved. So it's just like, if it's not going to bring eyeballs to the table, then what are we doing here?
Yeah, and you're still going to have an expanded playoff, which again, I'm not an expanded playoff guy, but it's here. So it is what it is. You're already there. So if losses in the regular season aren't going to be as meaningful, which is my problem with the playoff, at least have better games. So, now every game brings a sense of drama because maybe one loss isn't as meaningful, but 2 losses certainly is still pretty meaningful. And if you're playing tough games every week, as opposed to playing Ball State or FAMU or whoever it is, it becomes more competitive. So to me, that proposal makes sense. There was another proposal which didn't involve cutting down teams, but did involve kind of consolidating everybody. So you negotiate media rights in one package. One thing I'd like to see when the dust settles on all this, however it ends up, make the divisions regional. Conference affiliation to me in 2024 means absolutely nothing. As far as, Oregon versus Ohio State, that's a Rose Bowl game. That's not a conference game to me. The fact they're in the same conference, I mean, it makes sense for the Big Ten financially based on the current setup. But as far as as a fan, as a consumer, the conferences don't add anything. In fact, I think they detract with the way they are. So if you can make a true Southeastern Conference, a true Big 12 type conference, let's call it the Southwestern Conference, like the old Southwestern Conference.
Old days,
yeah. Big 10, that name never made sense once you got out to 10 teams, but whatever you want to call it, the big
mid.
I like that. The big mid, the Pac, that makes a lot of sense, of course. And then the Atlantic Coast, that you could do something that is just meant to minimize travel, to increase rivalries. And look, the more local rivalries you have, the more games that make sense and are interesting from a historic perspective, the better your ratings are. And if you're consolidating your negotiations, the rights packages for the negotiation, you just want to have the most compelling product. So that would bring back regional affiliations to college football, which I think makes a lot of sense. Because right now, the Big Ten and the SEC, and definitely the ACC, I mean, I just flew back from California for an Atlantic Coast Conference game. It doesn't make any sense right now. And it doesn't help. Viewers want to see games college football viewers want to see games they saw as kids. And especially if you can get some, a Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Iowa, all in the same conference, that makes sense. Or Arkansas, Missouri, get them in the same conference. To me, that makes a lot more sense than the way we have it right now.
Sounds a lot like the NFL to me, D.
Yeah, well, the NFL sucks right now. So I don't want to copy that product exactly, but we're already there. We're already paying players. We already have a playoff that is, 12-team playoff. What's the NFL playoff, right? So it's not, you're pretty much already there as far as the things that made college football unique. If you get back to regional games, you're getting back in a way to what made college football unique, as opposed to now where Cal versus Miami, Oregon, Ohio State in conference games just doesn't make any sense for me as a viewer, other than, the matchup. You want to see the game. There's no history there. There's no crowd where half is one team and half is the other team. It's too far travel for the fans, beyond the fact that the players have to travel and all those other things. It just doesn't make sense. So when this whole thing, the dust settles on all these different proposals, I just hope we get back to regional, historic divisions, conferences, whatever you want to call them, that aren't this bloated SEC and Big Ten and ACC that you see today.
All right, D, before we wrap things up, wanted to talk about an event happening this Saturday at Christopher Columbus High School, my alma mater. So all my Columbus people out there, would love to see you out at the 2024 Fred Foyle Brew Fest from 4 to 8 p.m. The link will be in our description here for you guys to grab tickets. Again, this Saturday, October 12th from 4 to 8 p.m. honoring a great man. Should be a great event out there. Hope to see all my Columbus people. And even if you aren't, affiliated with the school, should be a great event. So come out there and join the fun. There's been, listen, D, I know you're a Belen guy, but we gotta give Columbus some props these days with Coach Cristobal leading the way.
Coach Cristobal, Jose Mas, major contributor to the program as well. You talk about Coach Mirabal from Columbus, and we just played a Columbus quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. Miami was able to come out on top there.
And then this Thursday, man, maybe the Boozers are in the mix, man. Let's see. It's going to be a tough one. Obviously, Duke with their father, where he played, Carlos Boozer. But, man, if they can get this one done, it might be the biggest pickup recruiting-wise in Hurricanes history. So, fingers crossed, man.
And we'll be all over that. It's going to be wall-to-wall coverage of that Boozer announcement here on CanesInSight. So when the Hurricane doesn't knock us all out, we will be there covering that thing as close as possible, giving you all the analysis, whichever way it goes. Hopefully it goes Canes' way.
All right, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel. We will keep you guys moving here. We got our live show tomorrow, as always, with Mike Ryan, as we do every Wednesday. And it's bye week, but the action doesn't stop here on CanesInsight.com and, of course, the YouTube channel. And then wherever you can get your podcasts, we're available daily. So like and subscribe. Go Canes.
Go Canes.
Yeah, this an insight to the Canes, and you know we ain't playing no games. Joaquin said dominate, so that's what we do. Home of the legends and 7th floor crew, down in Miami where hurricanes brew. You here for the rumors, we bring you the news, cause it's all about the you, and nobody do it like CanesInSight. 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 It's CanesInSight.